He only wanted to get home safely, holding his baby close, unaware that danger was just steps away. In an instant, flashing lights cut through the night, and a racist officer's rage turned an ordinary walk into a nightmare. The man had no weapon, no crime, only a child in his arms. Yet, what unfolded next would shake an entire precinct to its core. Because when he made one call, just one, everything changed. The question is, how could a father, with nothing but a secret code, bring down those sworn to protect and serve? This is his story. It was supposed to be a simple evening. Marcus, a devoted father, had just finished his late shift at the factory. His arms ached, but his heart was light, because tonight he wasn't walking home alone. His infant son, cradled against his chest, slept peacefully, unaware of the world's weight pressing down on his father's shoulders. For Marcus, these walks through his neighborhood meant more than just a route home. They were a reminder of the life he was working so hard to build, a life where his son would grow up safe, respected, and free. He thought about the future, about the promises he had made to his child. He never imagined that on this night, those very promises would be tested. The streets were quiet, the kind of silence that usually brought comfort. But as Marcus passed under the dim glow of a flickering streetlight, a car slowed beside him. The hum of the engine lingered longer than it should have. His pulse quickened, though he tried to ignore it. After all, he had nothing to hide. He was just a father heading home. What Marcus couldn't know was that inside that car sat a man whose authority had been twisted by hate. And soon, that hate would come crashing into Marcus's life with a force he never expected. Marcus adjusted the baby carrier gently, whispering a soft hush as his son stirred. The car that had been creeping along the curb finally came to a stop, its headlights glaring into the night. The door slammed, echoing like a warning. Out stepped an officer, his badge glinting under the streetlight, his eyes already hard with suspicion. "Where are you going this late?" the officer barked. His tone carried no curiosity, only accusation. Marcus kept his voice calm, though unease knotted his stomach. He explained he was walking home from work, holding his sleeping child as proof of his peaceful intent. But the officer wasn't listening. His gaze wasn't on the baby. It was on Marcus's skin, his every movement, his very existence. The officer's hand hovered near his holster, and Marcus's heart thudded in his chest. He thought of his son, still asleep, innocent and unaware. One wrong move, one misunderstood gesture, and this quiet street could become their last memory together. Passers-by began to slow down, sensing the hostility in the air. A few raised their phones, recording discreetly. Marcus could feel the weight of unseen eyes, but the officer only grew bolder, stepping closer, spitting accusations that had no truth. Trespassing, suspicious behavior, possible theft. All baseless, yet all delivered with the authority of a uniform. The baby whimpered, his tiny cry cutting through the tension. Marcus rocked him gently, whispering comfort, but the officer snapped, shouting that he must stop resisting. The words hit Marcus like a slap. He hadn't resisted, hadn't even moved. Still, the officer lunged, shoving him against the hood of the car. Fear surged, but so did resolve. Marcus knew he couldn't fight back physically. It would only end one way. But he wasn't powerless. Beneath his breath, with the officer's weight pressing on him, he whispered a series of numbers into his phone. Numbers only a select few would understand. A code, one passed down quietly, used only in emergencies. And then he pressed send. The officer smirked, confident in his dominance. What he didn't know was that Marcus's call had already set something in motion, something that would reach far beyond this single street corner. The officer's grip tightened on Marcus's shoulder, shoving him harder against the cold metal of the hood. His baby began to cry, a piercing wail that tore through the night. Neighbors peeked out from windows, bystanders whispered, and cell phone cameras tilted closer. But the officer's fury only grew. "Put the child down!" he barked, his hand twitching near his holster. Marcus's breath came in quick bursts. Every instinct told him to shield his son, to keep him safe no matter the cost. But the officer saw only defiance. His voice rose, venom dripping from every word, painting Marcus as a threat when all he was a father. Then, in the distance, came the sound. Sirens. Not just one, but several, growing louder with each passing second. The officer's eyes narrowed, confusion flickering across his face. He hadn't called for backup. So, who had? Within moments, multiple squad cars screeched to a halt, surrounding the scene. Doors slammed, boots pounded pavement. Officers poured out, not with the same hostility, but with purpose, urgency. They moved past the crowd, past the stunned bystanders, and converged directly on their fellow officer. "Step away from him, now!" The command was sharp, authoritative, and left no room for argument. The officer froze, his hand still hovering near his weapon. He stammered, insisting he had control, that Marcus was resisting, that protocol was being followed. But the looks on the arriving officers' faces told another story. They weren't here to help him. They were here because of the code. Marcus, still holding his crying son, felt the weight lift, slowly, cautiously. He didn't know if this was truly the end or just the eye of the storm. But for the first time that night, the balance of power had shifted, and the man who thought he was untouchable now stood surrounded, his authority unraveling under the very badge he wore. The street was no longer quiet. Blue and red lights painted the houses, sirens faded into silence, and a tense crowd of neighbors watched as the officer who had abused his power now found himself questioned by his own peers. His protests grew weaker with every word, drowned out by the reality caught on dozens of cameras and the authority of those who had come in response to the code. Marcus stood shakily, his baby pressed tightly against his chest. Relief washed over him, but so did exhaustion. He hadn't fought with fists or anger. He had fought with something stronger, a code whispered across generations, designed for moments when justice failed, when danger came not from strangers, but from those in uniform. That code had brought others running, and tonight it had saved both him and his child. As the officer was led away for questioning, Marcus's neighbors stepped closer. Some patted his back. Others simply nodded, their faces heavy with the knowledge that what they had witnessed was more than one man's struggle. It was a mirror reflecting a painful truth. This wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. Marcus walked home that night with his son still in his arms, safe but forever changed. The fear lingered, but so did something else, resolve. Because his story wasn't just about survival. It was about resistance, about the strength of a community that refuses to stay silent. And so the question remains, for all of us watching, listening, remembering. How many more fathers must whisper secret codes in the dark before justice speaks loudly on its own? If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Stories like Marcus's are not just fiction. They echo the lived reality of countless people facing injustice every day. By sharing, reflecting, and speaking out, we become part of the change that is so desperately needed. So I ask you, what would you have done if you were in Marcus's place? And more importantly, what will you do now that you know stories like his are real? If you found value in this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with others. Let's keep these conversations alive, because silence only protects the problem. Together, we can make sure voices like Marcus's are never forgotten.